Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here. And today in this video, we're going to be talking all about after pains, which are a often very unwelcome effect postnatally, and so many of us are unfamiliar or didn't realize that this is part of the postnatal experience. But since our uterus has grown to expand and create space for baby, amniotic fluid, and placenta, we have to then do the work to help it shrink and come back down to size. So come back down to its normal size where it is fitting somewhere within our pelvic region. And as you can imagine, it's done a lot of growth, so it's a lot of effort for it to come back. And so these after pains tend to peak as we are nursing our babies, if you choose to nurse your baby, and or tend to get worse with each subsequent pregnancy. So it's terribly unfair. So many of us don't know that it is one of the postnatal symptoms that happens after having a baby, and without any warning it can really come on as a bit of a shock. You think that you've done all the work, that you've had your baby, that you've done the big labor, and then all of a sudden you're nursing your baby and you're like, what the heck is this? And it can really be very much similar to having contractions over again. Many women will say that it's similar to like early labor, and for some women it's nearly worse for them to have these afterbirth contractions or these afterbirth pains, because of course you don't get another baby at the end of it. It's not the same pain with purpose. Yes, it is pain, but it does have a purpose, but it's not bringing your baby to you. So typically we have baby is born, placenta comes out, baby goes onto the breast, and immediately our body is working on this involution. So our uterus is clamping down and coming back down to size. In full, it takes somewhere around 6 to 7 weeks for the uterus to come back down into that pelvic region. So breastfeeding really helps. And the reason that we have these afterbirth pains, these afterbirth contractions, is to reduce the likelihood of bleeding and to help the uterus start to come back down again. So what can we do to help ease this discomfort now that we understand a little bit about why it happens, why it's so important that we have these afterbirth pains and these afterbirth contractions? How can we make it a little bit more manageable for you? Let's start with my tips. So my tip number one is to plan for them. So now that you know that it's a thing and you know to expect them, plan in your head, in your mindset, to experience these and know to come back to the similar techniques that you've been using in your labor. So the first one that I like to recommend continuing to use while you have access to it, so for instance while you're on the labour ward or if you're in a midwifery led unit, to use gas and air. So Entonox is a fantastic pain reliever, and it can really just take the edge off those afterbirth pains if they are very uncomfortable for you. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is to use your TENS machine. So if you have a TENS machine that you've been using in early labour, keep it on your back. You might want to move it maybe down a little bit more depending on where you're experiencing the discomfort, and have it on like that low kind of buzzy setting, and that interferes with the pain gate pathway and can help you be much more comfortable with those afterbirth pains. The next one is to utilize warmth. So similar to how you would utilize warmth in early labor, and or if you were to have period pains, a nice hot compress, using a hot water bottle or a heated blanket can be really nice just to ease that muscle spasm, that muscle contraction, just to keep everything down regulated that little bit more. So warm compress can be really helpful. The next one that I want to recommend is either a tincture or a tea made with cramp bark. So you may have heard of the After Ease tincture, which is fantastic and I always carry with me in my doula kit, although it is a little bit more difficult to get. I will link all of my favourite things and bits and pieces in the little description box down below, but anything at all that contains cramp bark is particularly good for easing those afterbirth contractions. The next thing that comes from sort of the various cultural norms around postnatal care around the world is to drink only warm drinks. And this is something that I didn't think was a thing at all until after my last baby. I kind of refused to drink any warm drinks, and I really had felt quite significant afterbirth contractions with my older baby. And this time I was prepared and I said, okay, I'm going to try all these different things. And I felt that actually, in drinking only warm drinks, so no cold drinks, it definitely brought down the intensity of those after birth contractions. So I was drinking, warm teas, soups, broths, and then water would be a little bit warm with maybe like a squeeze of lemon juice or something in it. But I was staying away from like really harshly cold refrigerated drinks. So that's another kind of unusual one to add in. And then the last one is just to say that if for some reason none of these things have been helping you, you've been using your gas and air, you've been using your warm compresses, you've been applying your TENS machine, drinking your cramp bark extract, and you are still in discomfort as you're nursing your baby, medication. And if that's, you're already taking your paracetamol or your ibuprofen and that's not hitting it, let your care providers know that that's not enough, and say to them, I'm having significant postpartum cramping. This is not helping me, what I've been given so far. And there are stronger medications. For instance, I've seen oxynorm prescribed for those mamas who experience more intense after birth contractions. So there are some little tips and techniques for you, different things that you can try, different ways that you can manage your postnatal cramping, and know that it has a function. Know that if your body is working well and efficiently and doing exactly what it should be, it's working to reduce your bleeding, to help your uterus with that involution coming back down to size after being, that gravid uterus, supporting your baby, placenta, amniotic fluid. We want everything to come back down to size. And so our body's way of doing that is to have those contractions to bring them way back down. So while we want them, they're not necessarily always comfortable. So utilizing these tips might well send you on your way. I hope you've learned a little something from this. For many mamas, it's very much unexpected and they are taken by surprise when they're still cramping and baby's already in their arms. So going into things like this with yourself armed, with some different ideas to make you more comfortable can really make the difference. Let me know if you had significant postnatal cramping and what was your favorite tip to make it more comfortable for you. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.